So today's video is going to be another Jessi-cated upload. This video was from last year, just a few months back, and it's when we first started Jessi-cated, and I loved this tutorial. I did a lived-in summer blonde, and it turned out so good. It was one of my favorite blondes I've ever done. It was on Asia, our salon manager, who you guys have seen me take strawberry blonde dark. She's done it all, but this was at the very beginning when we were just kind of retouching up her blonde and freshening it up. So I wanted to show you guys because I loved the technique I used in this video, and it turned out beautiful. So without further ado, here is Lived-In Summer Blonde from Jessi-cated. Hi everybody, welcome back to Jessi-cated. Today's episode is going to be all about how to achieve a really lived-in, natural looking color that's also on trend. We're going for like a beachy blonde. We're going to be talking about how you can use the hair's natural dimension to your favor to make the blonde pieces really stand out. So if you're interested in watching this tutorial, let's get going. All right guys, so this is our starting canvas. As you can see, she has quite a bit of regrowth. She actually has a really good color naturally. I'm going to definitely use that to my advantage and use it as my base and work around that. So we are going to be adding in some lighter pieces. We definitely want to brighten her up a bit. In the intro, I told you guys we were going to be using her natural dimension to our favor. And what I mean by that is you can see that she is pretty blonde, but she does have a more golden tone, and there are some darker pieces throughout as well. And I'm going to be using those as my dimension, and I'm going to use that to my advantage to make my blondes that I'm adding in look brighter. If you are wanting to darken your client and add lowlights in to make your highlights pop, you can totally do that. But I actually want to take her a little brighter, so these golden pieces are going to be my dimension. I don't necessarily want to add in a dark color to create dimension. So we're going to get started by parting her off. This is her natural part, so I'm going to go off of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure it goes straight back all the way. And then instead of just going straight down right here, I'm going to part it off by taking my comb and angling forward like this so that my section is on a slight angle. And then I'm going to clip that away. I will be doing the same thing to the other side, and then in the back, I'm just gonna leave it as one section, and we're gonna start back there so you can see what we do. Okay, you guys, so I have her parted off at the base of the neck, and I've done an upside down triangle. So the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to do a section in the middle, but it's going to pull from either side. If I wanted to focus my pieces on the sides, I could do a foil here and a foil here. But if I take a foil here to here, since we have that angle, I'm gonna draw from the sides and also get the middle. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. So I'm gonna take my section, and I want it to be about this wide. And we're going to be doing some teasy lights. I am going to be doing a mixture of teasy lights and regular highlighting for this look. I'm going to pull it all up like this, and I go at about 90 degrees. And what I do is I just push up once or twice. I don't ever go in and just backcomb like crazy. This is going to give you a more clean application, and it's going to be a little bit easier to brush out when you're done as well. You can see that she has a lot of natural dimension in her hair like we talked about, and I'm definitely going to use that to my advantage and work around it. So since this section is a little bit thinner, I'm just gonna go ahead and lighten everything right here. I'm not gonna weave it out. So it's technically gonna be like a teasy slice. I always start by applying my product mids to ends first. That way you really get the product in there and you can saturate really well. And then when there's not a ton of product left on the brush, that's when you blend upwards, and that's going to kind of give you a softer look and ensure that you don't have any harsh lines. I also like to apply my brush backwards and up like this because that's also going to help you blend. And when I do teasy lights or teasy slices, I always like to put another foil right on top rather than folding the foil up. That's going to bring all of your product together and it's going to create a problem. So I am just laying it on top and folding the sides so it's clean. Okay, now I'm gonna use my bricklay pattern and I'm gonna go in right here and go on the angle. And the great thing about colors like this is you don't have to do a lot of foil work. A little bit goes a long way, especially if you are trying to keep dimension in the hair and keep it low maintenance for your client. And then what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna highlight, and this is gonna give us different patterns throughout the hair so it looks really natural. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And I'm just gonna follow that pattern all the way up the head. And then once I get a little further up towards the top, I'm gonna utilize normal highlights so that I can bring the blonde even further up. Okay, so on the last angled pieces, I weaved it out. On this one, I'm gonna keep a slice. That way I have like a weave and a slice, weave, slice, and it's kind of in a different pattern all over so it doesn't look uniform. The important thing to remember when doing this is saturation is key, especially on your slices. If you don't saturate enough, it's gonna look really chunky and it's also not going to process the right way. Something I like to do with teasy lights, especially when I'm trying to keep some dimension in the hair, is I don't necessarily do a highlight pattern. So usually with teasy lights, what I've been doing is just this, the typical highlight pattern. But let's say there's a piece of dimension in the hair that I really wanna keep. I'm actually gonna highlight around it. So I'm gonna take this and this, and I'm just gonna leave that middle section out because I want that darker piece to stay in, and then I'm just gonna go over it like this. The main reason that we use the teasing technique for things like this is because it takes away or adds dimension. So when you're doing this technique, keep in mind that the more hair you push away, the more dimension you're gonna have, and the less hair you push away, the less dimension you're gonna have. So each section will probably be different depending on where you're at in the head, and just kind of keep that in mind as you're teasing. Something I get asked a lot about teasy lights is if you should color up where the hair is teased. Obviously, since you're just kind of painting it on, sometimes it will get up there, and that's okay, but you never intentionally want to go over and paint over the tease because most likely, since it's really ununiform, it's going to look splotchy. So you definitely want to keep it throughout here, and then the purpose of the tease is once you brush it out, it's going to come back through and help blend it and add dimension. When doing teasy lights, if you want to add more teasing, we're going to use a different angle, but if you want less teasing, holding it at 90 degrees or even 45 is totally fine. But when I get higher up, I'm actually going to do a little bit more. So if you hold it straight up from the head, it makes it a little bit easier to tease down rather than having to work at it so much. So it's kind of just like your comfort zone and how much tease you're wanting to do. So teasy lights and foliage have really replaced balayage for me. There are some clients that are going to need a balayage, but for the most part, a lot of people that are wanting these lived-in natural colors, they do want a lot of lift, and balayage just doesn't quite give you that. So these techniques are really good for kind of faking a balayage, but getting more lift, and that's why I like to use them so much. but definitely keep in mind that practice makes perfect. These techniques can be really hard if you don't know what you're doing, but once you get the hang of it, it does become pretty easy. I would say one of the most common mistakes that I used to make with foliage and teasy lights is instead of folding my foil, I would just stick a foil under it, and as the hair started processing, the foils would start to slip. So one of my tips with this is use your regular foils or longer ones if you feel like you need to, but still lock it with a lip at the back, and then separate the tease and put it in as close to the scalp as you can. And then you can go back in and kind of clean the tease up if you need to, but this way your foil is gonna stay really tight and you have a good idea of where your product needs to go. Like I said before, saturation is key. So making sure you're using the right product is really important. I am using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume. Typically I would add Olaplex in since I am overlapping onto her previous blonde, but this lightener actually has a bond enhancement built in, so it's not 100% necessary to. And I have used this lightener for a long time and I feel like it does a really good job at protecting the hair. And then also making sure you're using the right brushes is helpful too. I like to use the Goldwell brushes. I feel like they apply and spread product around really well. I'm also using this pretty little ombre brush. I really love this for teasy lights. Okay, so now I'm towards the top of the head. I'm gonna start adding in baby lights as well. This is just going to brighten us up a little bit as we get closer up to the top, and she has less dimension, and I'm really gonna capitalize on all of that blonde hair. So we are going to go in and do a traditional baby light, very thin sections. With looks like this, since we are going to be doing a rooted lived-in look, it's not 100% necessary to go all the way up to the root, but I am gonna go like pretty high up only because I wanna bring these blondes up and then I can smudge down, but that way when the smudge starts to fade out, there's not a harsh line and there's still kind of like a whisper of those highlights peeking through. And now that I'm adding in highlights like this, I'm going to do a pattern of 2 highlights to 1 teasy light. And since I'm wanting to add more blonde up here, my teasy lights are going to be slices. And I'm still kind of using that left, middle, right pattern. And then once I get up towards the tip top, I'll just focus on the middle. Okay, so now I'm coming up towards the top of the head, and because of that, I'm just gonna be doing highlights now. I have a foil right here. I'm probably gonna do about 2 or 3 more. Okay, so I have this section and this section left. Since this bottom section is a lot wider, I'm actually going to divide it into 2, and I'm gonna do a foil here, and then just 1 final foil up top. Okay, so this is my last section. I'm going to go in and add a baby light up here. Okay, so you guys saw how I parted this area on a slight angle. I'm going to utilize angles as I place my foil as well. I'm going to be doing a pattern that I love to use for things like this where you want a really bright front piece, but you don't necessarily need to go in and do back-to-back foils right here like you would on a normal blonde. So I'm going to do a straight across part like this. And this is going to be a teasy slice. I'm just gonna take this whole section and I'm going to tease it a little bit, and then we're just gonna slice everything right here so it's nice and bright. And now that we're at the front of the head, I'm actually transitioning into a Goldwell brush because this is a little bit smaller and it's going to help me better get those money pieces and the finer sections I'm going to be doing. And then what my pattern is going to be is I'm gonna go up on an angle like this, and anything that I'm angling right here is going to be either a slice or a highlight. Since we're not quite to the money area, I'm gonna do a highlight first, and then I'm going to go straight back in and do another foil right here. And this is going to be a teasy slice as well. And then I'm doing another highlight here on an angle, and this is going to fall towards the front of the face. Okay, and now that we're getting up closer to the top of the head, this last section I'm parting off towards the hairline is going to be the last one I highlight, and then I'm going to transition to doing some slices. In balayage, we oftentimes paint a V pattern, or we'll kind of paint the pattern that we're looking for, and it's important to remember that with teasy lights you can still do that. For example, you can start in the middle right here, saturate your product, and then take it up on one side, up on the other side, and create the look you're going for. So I'm gonna do just that, where I leave it lower in the center and go higher on the left, higher on the right, and that way we have that empty negative space right here, and that's gonna help it really pop and add that dimension we're needing. It's also going to help it not look like it's a straight across line of lightener. Okay, so for this one, I'm getting closer to where the money piece is gonna start, so I'm going to start by highlighting where I'm normally going, and then I'm gonna skip a section and kind of pick up a slice. So I'm gonna stop my highlighting, put my comb under, and pick up a slice like this. So we will have a pretty noticeable gap, but it's gonna look really transitional once this is in. Another way that you can mimic the V pattern if you're uncomfortable actually painting a V on is you can just grab it yourself with your comb. For example, I'm gonna grab my left and my right side and leave the middle out. And that way I can just apply my lightener, and then when it lays, that middle part will act as the dimension. So I can go in and color everything, obviously still feathering, so it's a nice soft blended look, but I don't have to worry about leaving anything out because I already removed it. And I'm just continuing this same pattern where I'm going straight down angle, straight down angle. And the cool thing about this pattern is it's really gonna give you a visualization of how it's going to look when it's out. I know that all of my angled foils in the front are my brighter pieces, and everything right here is a teasy light. Okay, so we're gonna let her process for about 15 minutes under heat, and then we're gonna check it, let it sit at room temperature a little bit longer depending on how it looks, and then we're gonna go to the bowl and start the toning process. All right, you guys, so we are now at the bowl. What I did to get the teasing out is I washed with warm water, which I feel kind of helps break down the tease to start off with. Then we did a clarifying shampoo, which also helps break down the tease. And then we did a leave-in conditioner, or you can use an Olaplex treatment. And we put that on mids to ends, and I kind of saturated it through the tease as well. And then we used a metal bristle brush, and that really helps kind of comb through the tease too. And that's how we get the tease out. And then what we did was we parted her down the center with our blending comb. Now everything's ready. She still has the conditioner on mids to ends, and we are going to be doing the root area. What I'm going to do is part off so that her money pieces and front areas are left out. So what we're going to be doing on the root is we're doing a shadow back here using 7N, 7NA Goldwell Colorants. And then in the front, we're going to be using Redken Shades 8N, 9NA to keep it a little bit brighter. So I'm just going through her hair right now with the 7N, 7NA, and I'm just kind of smudging down a couple of inches to give it more of a lived-in look. And you can see that she did lift pretty well, so I'm really excited for what this is going to look like. We're going to let this root process about 10 minutes. With root colors, I usually just let it process for as long as I think that person needs, which is why it's important to keep an eye on it. I would say typically with Goldwell Colorants, it's 10 to 20 minutes. So we're gonna keep an eye on that, and then we're gonna do the front. Okay, so this root is on. I've clipped away all of the front hairline pieces, and I'm actually going to keep those until the very, very, very end. So kind of just forget about those for now. As you can see, that 7N, 7NA is on, and it looks really beautiful. It's already toning it so well. What we're going to do is we're going to let this sit just a few more minutes, and then we're going to rinse the conditioner out. And then we're going to tone the ends along with the root. If I'm doing a really bright platinum blonde, for example, I will rinse the root out and then tone. But when we're doing a lived-in color, I'm actually going to work the toner in with the root color so that it all blends together really nicely. Okay, so we just rinsed the conditioner out. The root color is still on. Now we're going to put the toner on, and this is Redken Shades EQ 9NA 10VV 9P with a dash of 9GI. So we're gonna just start by toning everything back here, still keeping those hairline pieces away. This is just gonna give the hair a really nice gloss and tone. And something I like to do is I'll put the toner in my hand like this, rub it together, and then lift up so I get the underneath as well. And this is where our third formula comes into play. We are using Redken Shades 8N 9NA. This is just going to ensure that the hairline stays a little bit brighter than the rest of the hair. And we are just gently tapping that so that it doesn't get dragged down too far. I also think that Redken Shades is a little more translucent than Goldwell, so doing that on the hairline is also going to ensure that it stands out and is a little bit brighter as well. And now that that's rinsed out, I'm going to tone the ends of those money pieces. So the difference between the back and the front was the back had a darker root color and I mixed the toner and the root color together, and the front had a lighter root color and I rinsed it first and then toned. This is going to ensure that the front stays brighter than the rest. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and you learned something new. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Education with Jessi, and we'll see you next time.